Even during the early days of GTA Online, there were some of us that envisioned an expansion to GTA Online, which would allow players to venture between southern San Andreas and Liberty City. Fun fact, the original version of GTA Online had the protagonist flying to Los Santos from Liberty City. They had correspondence with Lamar, and eventually Lamar convinced them that there was more opportunities for our protagonist character in Los Santos and San Andreas than we currently had in Liberty City. But the closest thing we've had to an expansion is the Cayo Perico heist, and you can really only use the Cayo Perico heist for the heist itself. And if you want to go back and dance in the dance part area, the party section, that's pretty much all you can do when it comes to the island of Cayo Perico. But there was a rumor that circulated not too long ago regarding the possibility of Rockstar finally adding Liberty City to GTA Online. And this comes from some leaker out there, alleged leaker, that claims to have some inside baseball. Whether or not they're legit remains to be seen, but it's good for speculation, I suppose. Latest information on current LC planning for GTA Online. You will need a GTA Plus subscription. Now, this is obviously in a foreign language, and that's why I have it translated for you in the screenshot. So some people say that this guy's legit, that he's reputable. Other people say that he's not. But my stance on leaks are always the same. Until it's officially confirmed by the developer one way or the other, then you have to take it with a grain of salt. And bear in mind, once again, we have been hoping for an expansion to GTA Online for the longest time, whether it was North Yankton, Liberty City, or some other new location. But after 8+ years and several generations of consoles, including PC, I think that the best bet for GTA Online to survive and have new life breathed into it is with expansions, because we've had tons of content over the years, starting back with the Beach Bum update, all the way up to most recently the contract, and even some vehicles that were included with the Milked edition of GTA Online for PS5, Xbox Series. Now, the rumors of Liberty City coming to GTA Online have been around for quite a while now. In fact, I think I have a video from 6-7 years ago in the very early days of my channel where I talked about potential Liberty City DLC. Of course, in hindsight, it wasn't very realistic coming to the Xbox 360 and PS3. But today, with much more impressive consoles like the PS5 and Xbox Series S and X, I think that an expansion like Liberty City for GTA Online is very possible. Whether or not it actually occurs remains to be seen. But let's just talk about my ideas for a Liberty City expansion. Now, obviously, I can't address the Liberty City expansion idea without how we're going to go about being able to unlock Liberty City in GTA Online. Obviously, if it's going to be connected to GTA Plus, which is a scam in my opinion for $6 a month, I think that it's going to be limited to the PS5, Xbox Series, and maybe eventually PC. So, unfortunately, it feels like PS4, Xbox One players might not get the opportunity to go back to Liberty City. At the same time, I'm hoping that GTA Plus is not the only way to unlock Liberty City. Just give us another option, Rockstar. If you're going to make us pay for it, I'd rather just give you $20 a one-time payment so that we can have Liberty City expansion. So I'd rather just do that. Here's $20, just let me go back to Liberty City. You and I both know they're not going to give us Liberty City expansion for free. They won't even give you a free upgrade for the PS4, Xbox One players who now have a PS5, Xbox Series. They expect us to buy GTA 5 or the standalone version of GTA Online. By the way, the physical copies of GTA 5 are out now for PS5, Xbox Series X. I think it's $40 US. All you get is a disc, no map, no guide, no poster. Just the disc. In case you were waiting for the physical copy to come out. Now, if these latest leaks, rumors regarding the Liberty City expansion for GTA Online are true, I sincerely hope that Rockstar gives us options when it comes to acquiring Liberty City. I think, for the record, that we should be able to go there anyway, since we've given them billions of dollars over the years with copy after copy of GTA 5, and some people have purchased shark cards. but that's not happening. So the options that would make sense are for GTA Plus subscribers. Okay, that's one way you can unlock Liberty City. But the other option would be, say, a one-time payment to Rockstar Games in order to permanently unlock Liberty City. And let's just say $20 US would be that one-time payment. I think in the long run, that would be a much better deal than $6 a month, because after a while, that number is going to add up. It won't take a long time, 4 months exactly, until you have paid more than $20 just to be able to venture to Liberty City. And if that's the only reason why you got GTA Plus is so you could go to Liberty City, you're going to end up spending way more money than simply $20 for a one-time unlock of Liberty City, which is a lot more money that would be spent via the GTA Plus subscription scam than simply a one-time payment of $20 so that we could just go to Liberty City whenever we feel like it. That's a pretty good segue into how we'd be able to travel back and forth between Liberty City and San Andreas. I think that there's a few ways they could do it. They could simply do the same thing that we do for going to Cayo Perico. You go to that travel spot right at LSIA, and you just travel from there to Liberty City. Then they have something similar at Liberty City at San Francisco International that allows you to travel back to Southern San Andreas. Or perhaps you can book a commercial flight or take a personal plane or jet from one location to the next. Obviously, there would be a cutscene once you got to a certain point on the map of Southern San Andreas or Liberty City, which would take you back and forth from coast to coast, west coast to east coast, and east coast back to west coast. Now, what would I like to see in a Liberty City expansion? Obviously, an updated version of the map of Liberty City from GTA 4. There have been rumors for the longest time that Rockstar behind the scenes had already worked on an upgraded version of Liberty City, and I think at least one photo leaked out of Rockstar Games many years ago, but nothing's come of it. And there's also were rumors that Rockstar was going to add other expansions, such as an updated version of San Fierro and Las Venturas, and perhaps even North Yankton. Once again, none of that has come to pass. But specifically for Liberty City, obviously we want it fully upgraded. Graphically, we want it on par with the PS5, Xbox Series X versions of GTA Online. And unlike GTA 4 multiplayer, as you can tell, it can't be dead. One thing I forgot about when it came to GTA 4 multiplayer was how dead the map of Liberty City actually is. You have no NPCs, you have no traffic except for players flying around and driving around killing each other. That's pretty much it. Obviously, we want Liberty City to feel alive with people walking around, along with an up-to-date traffic, not the 2008 traffic from GTA 4, but quote-unquote modern vehicles from previous GTA Online updates. They need to refresh the traffic in Los Santos and Southern San Andreas as well. Maybe they'll get around to that eventually for the Milk Edition of GTA Online. But specifically for Liberty City, it obviously needs to feel fresh and new, but at the same time, the same Liberty City that we know and love from GTA 4. Up-to-date signs, up-to-date radio stations, and music. It's quite possible that Rockstar has been working on that project for many years now, and it's just taken them a long time and the right hardware in order to get Liberty City built up and looking good on the updated Rage engine, the same one as GTA Online's, in order to make it look passable and not from the 360 PS3 era. So what all would we be able to do in Liberty City, or what would I like for us to be able to do from the ground running, like at launch of this hypothetical expansion? Obviously, we would want to have properties in Liberty City very similar to Southern San Andreas, along with a 2-car garage, a low-end 6-car garage apartment, then some high-end apartments that are 10-car garages. I hope that Rockstar gives us different, unique interiors for those properties in Liberty City instead of simply just copy-pasting the interiors from Southern San Andreas and Los Santos all the way over to the Liberty City apartments. So hopefully Rockstar will at least change it up a little bit. And I think that there probably would be a limit of properties that we could own at the start. Let's just say 4. 4 is a good number. It's not a ton of properties that we could own off the bat, but 4 properties scattered across Liberty City that we could purchase with garage space and say up to 40 vehicles max. But starting off with 4 properties along with a max of say 40 vehicles that we could purchase and use to drive around Liberty City wouldn't be a bad start in my opinion. I think the current limit right now for like apartments and homes in southern San Andreas is 7. It's either 6, 7, 8, somewhere in that ballpark. So I think 4 is a good starting place for properties. Now, there would obviously be unique businesses in Liberty City. Perhaps they could focus on fronts in Liberty City, like you have restaurants and other like stores that would also serve as another form of operation going on. And you'd also have rival gangs to deal with, the Italian mob, the Russian mob, the Triads, maybe the Angels of Death instead of the Lost MC. Maybe the Angels of Death have taken over the East Coast, whereas the Lost have managed to take over the West Coast. And perhaps a few other factions as well in Liberty City. I don't know how many GTA 4 characters would end up being involved in a Liberty City expansion. Several of them have already made the move over to GTA Online Southern San Andreas, like Malk, Gay Tony, Brucey, just to name a few. I guess you could still have Little Jacob and Badman. Well, I think the actor that voiced Badman passed away, sadly, but at least have Little Jacob still around running the Yardies. So perhaps Little Jacob is now in charge of the Yardies in Liberty City, so he's a good guy to go to for connections and to do jobs with. Perhaps even Luis is running some of the clubs now. Maybe he's a good contact to have. I don't think there's any McCurries left in Liberty City. I guess it depends on which of the outcomes of GTA 4 is actually canon. That's still up for debate. But Packy's obviously in Southern San Andreas now. Gerald is still probably in jail. Derek, I think, is dead. One way or the other, Derek ends up dying because he had an alcohol drug issue anyways. Whether or not Francis is still alive, that is a mystery. So at the moment, there's no known McCurries that would be running the McCurry crime family unless they introduce a new McCurry that happens to be, say, a cousin of Packy McCurry as the contact between you and the McCurry crime family. So that's a possibility as well. There's a few other GTA 4 characters like Dwayne, Yusuf Amir, etc. that could also be introduced in Liberty City as contacts and individuals that would help you out with missions or people that you could do missions for, similar to some of the characters in GTA Online over in Southern San Andreas. A Liberty City expansion would also be a great opportunity to introduce some new heists specifically for Liberty City. Perhaps it's very similar to the heists in GTA Online, the original heist, where you first and foremost have to own a high-end apartment with a heist planning room. Maybe you have to do the same for Liberty City, buy a high-end apartment, which comes with your own heist playing room. Therefore, you get in contact with somebody similar to Lester, and you get to go do some heists. So for the Liberty City heist, it would take a combination of all the previous heists. The OG heist mixed in with some improvements made with the casino and the Cayo Perico heist, combining into some of the best heists that we've gotten yet. If we were to get an expansion of Liberty City, it would not surprise me if we also ended up getting unique heists revolved around Liberty City, like the Liberty Bank and a few other places in Liberty City as well that we could hit. Maybe not launch, but somewhere down the road, I'm sure they would introduce Liberty City heists to GTA Online. But of course, obviously, you would have to have the Liberty City expansion and probably a high-end apartment in Liberty City in order to do the Liberty City heist. There's also a few vehicles from GTA 4 that have yet to make the move over to GTA Online. Or there's also variations of vehicles like the Coquette that's unique to GTA 4 Liberty City. We don't have that version of the Coquette or the Turismo or a few other vehicles. Maybe those vehicles could be finally brought over to GTA Online via the Liberty City expansion, and the only way you can purchase those vehicles to be used in Liberty City as well as Los Santos and Southern San Andreas is by unlocking the Liberty City expansion, either through GTA Plus or by a one-time purchase. Now, when it comes to like transporting vehicles back and forth, I hope we have an ability to transport vehicles from Southern San Andreas to our garages in Liberty City and vice versa. I'm sure Rockstar will put a price tag to that. Perhaps for like regular vehicles that are non-weaponized, maybe it's like $50,000 a vehicle for transport. But for weaponized vehicles like tanks, broomsticks, along with fighter jets, attack helicopters, etc., perhaps that cost is a little higher. Maybe it's $100,000 or more to transport the weaponized vehicles like the Deluxo, the Stromberg, the Torador, etc. But I don't think Rockstar is going to let us, quote-unquote, transport vehicles for free. So speaking of the ability to transport vehicles from Los Santos, Southern San Andreas to Liberty City and back and forth, Obviously, we probably need hangars at San Francisco and Liberty City. I think in GTA 4 multiplayer, there is at least one major hangar, but no smaller hangars, so maybe Rockstar will update the map of Liberty City at San Francisco and other parts of the map in order to include additional properties, even though there's a lot of buildings in Liberty City. But specifically at the airport, hopefully they can add some hangar space, similar to Los Santos International or Fort Z, so that we can purchase hangar space for our own aircraft like helicopters, planes, jets. What's going to be interesting regarding the airspace of Liberty City compared to that of GTA 5 and Online's Southern San Andreas map, which is a little bit bigger than Liberty City. Imagine not only helicopters similar to the old days of GTA 4 multiplayer with the Annihilator and Buzzard everywhere. You're also going to have to contend with broomsticks, Deluxos, and perhaps even fighter jets flying around the skyscrapers of Liberty City. Whether you're flying around casually in Liberty City or you're PvPing, dogfighting with attack helicopters and even fighter jets, broomsticks, and Deluxos, let's just say the skies of Liberty City are going to be a lot more intense. But I'm sure similar to GTA Online, Southern San Andreas map will have multiple lobby types. So if you just want to go into Liberty City and play by yourself or with friends and not have to deal with PvP players on the ground or in the skies, I'm sure that we'll have public lobbies as well as crew, invite, and friend sessions that we can jump into as well when it comes to the Liberty City expansion. At least I hope that's the case. And another thing I think that would give great replay value and fun factor to Liberty City is the creator mode. Now, the creator mode in GTA Online has been used by awesome creators out there to make some fantastic modes. Races, death matches, captures, LTSs, King of the Hill, survivals. Now imagine what a brand new map like Liberty City and GTA Online combined with the Rockstar creator could do for the GTA Online community. Imagine all the awesome races and death matches and survivals and LTSs that could be made in that map. So if we do end up getting a Liberty City expansion to GTA Online for PS5, Xbox Series, probably eventually PC, hopefully it will also come with the Rockstar creator, because a lot of awesome game modes have been created within the community itself. Races, stunt races, captures, LTSs, King of the Hills, survivals, death matches being made specifically with the Liberty City map would be added value, replayability, fun factor, and that would be a major plus when it comes to a Liberty City expansion. And the very idea of having somewhere new to go and venture to and drive around and hang out like Liberty City would also breathe new life into GTA Online, because as I stated at the beginning of the video, we've had tons of content over the years, and it's hard to imagine or fathom what direction Rockstar could go next with their updates. The only logical step forward to keep GTA Online going is expansions, more than simply Cayo Perico. North Yankton is a good option as well, but the only other more realistic option besides North Yankton is Liberty City. Whether or not we ever get an expansion to Liberty City for GTA Online remains to be seen. And when it comes to that rumored leak we talked about at the beginning of the video, once again, you have to take that with a grain of salt until it's either confirmed or debunked by Rockstar Games. Your thoughts, your views, your opinions regarding a hypothetical Liberty City expansion for GTA Online. How would you like it to play out? Free? Best case scenario, right? Or if there were payment options, what would you rather do? GTA Plus for $6 a month, or a one-time payment? And what all would you like to see in a Liberty City expansion? Feel free and let us know below in the comments section.